Hello, everybody. Sunday Adelaja here. I am trying to put in recording, to record and to put in documentary my thoughts and meditations or deliberations. I've been thinking about the situation that I found myself in, being in the very middle of this war between Russia and Ukraine. I've also been thinking about how this war will end and how fast, how quickly. But in the midst of that, there is something that has bothered me the most, and it's still bothering me now. And that's why this video, I'm calling it my biggest fear. My biggest fear. So in this whole conflict, it's not even Ukraine right now. My biggest fear is not also Russia, although it's connected to both Ukraine and Russia. But my biggest fear now is that this war will not escalate into a third world war. Right now, the situation the world is in is a big possibility that this conflict and this war we're witnessing, this act of aggression from the side of Russia Federation against a sovereign nation, Ukraine, might not end in Ukraine, and it might not end up being just the Ukraine war or Ukraine conflict. The Ukraine president has been talking about this so many times that this is not just about Ukraine. But the reason why he talks about it is that he wants to get the West and NATO to give us, to give the Ukrainian people or Ukrainian government more arms and weapons so that, we'll be able to effectively defend ourselves against Russia. Another reason why the Ukraine president has been talking about this war, not just being about Ukraine, is so that NATO will come in and help more actively, or US will come and fight alongside the Ukrainians. But the US has made it very clear that they don't want to fight in Ukraine. Okay? That's a big blow to Ukrainians, and Ukrainians just have to accept that. But that this is their war. It's not a war of NATO or America. And NATO has made the same statement that they will not fight in Ukraine. But still, where do I see the danger of this war escalating to Third World War? When I talk about Third World War, I'm not just talking about nations taking sides. When I talk about Third World War, I'm talking about a situation that the war could become a world catastrophe. Even if it's just going to be Russia against the whole world, against the whole world, it could still become a world catastrophe because Russia is no match against the might of NATO. And Russia, even Russia with China, they are no match for the NATO forces. And NATO, that's European Union, and Japan and America, they are much more superior in military might and strength to the forces of Russia, China, and even these Arab countries that might support them. But so where is the danger here of the Third World War? The danger is that Russia has a nuclear weapon, an arsenal of nuclear weapon. Now, when you take conventional military arsenal that is possessed by Russia and America, America has a upper hand, and NATO has a upper hand in conventional military weapons and weaponry than Russia. They have more aircrafts, they have more tanks, they have more men. But when it comes to nuclear arsenal, Russia has a upper hand over over NATO and over America. So this is a big problem and a big concern because the way things are going right now, there is a big pressure on the NATO countries and from Ukraine too, that the NATO countries should come and help Ukraine one way or the other, so that Ukraine will be able to, win this war. And Russia has continually warned that if NATO or any country at all will intervene in this conflict, that they will strike that country. And if Russia will strike a NATO country, that will activate Article 5 of NATO, which says that attack on any NATO countries will mean an attack on all of them and all NATO countries. And that will put Russia in a corner. Russia being in a corner, they will not like to lose the war, I bet you. They will not surrender and say, okay, we have lost. So, and I've heard, because I speak Russian and I listen to Vladimir Putin all the time, and I've heard him personally say that rather than Russia to lose, I'm paraphrasing now, rather than for Russia to lose a war to NATO or to the West, they would rather use their nuclear arsenal and there will be no victor, there will be no winner in this war. So rather than them to lose, they would rather use their nuclear weapon and obliterate the whole world. And the statement that Vladimir Putin made is this. He said, why do we need such a world where there will be no Russia in it? Why do we need such a world where there is no Russia in it? So in the mind of Russians and in the mind of Putin, this war in Ukraine is not really a war against Ukraine. It is a war against the West, a war against NATO, and a war against the values, the foreign values that is being imposed on them. And so an attack on Ukraine to them is an attempt in his own mind to push back the drive or the closeness, the moving closer of NATO to their borders. There are a lot of other things that could be said about this, but my concern is that everybody should be careful, whatever we do, not to allow a third world war to happen, because nobody will win. There will be no winner in this third world war. Even if it's going to be against Russia alone and the whole world is going to be against Russia, that will actually accelerate the process and the possibility of this becoming a World War III. And there will be no winner. It would mean the end of war for everybody. And a few weeks ago, when the foreign minister of England made a statement about NATO, doing something, I don't remember exactly what she said, then Putin responded by giving a command to his military to put on alert their nuclear arsenal. Put it on alert. And also another problem that is really troubling is that Poland, Slovenia, I think, is it Slovenia? Czechoslovakia, the former second part of Slovakia or something. They are now saying that they are ready to pass some weapons through to Ukraine. So they are saying they are ready to be a country that NATO could pass the weapons to and they will get it to Ukraine. And Russia has already warned that if any country would do that, that they are going to attack that country. It looks like a madman's rant. But when a madman is ranting, you don't want to, You don't want to try him, and you don't want to say, okay, what about if he doesn't do it? The danger is, what about if he does it? And also, my adopted country of Ukraine is pressing and pressurizing the US and NATO to come to our aid, either by giving us the weapons so that we will close the airspace ourselves, or they will come and help us close the airspace. NATO has said they would not close the airspace for us, but Ukraine wants to close the airspace. But Russia has said if any country will give to Ukraine anti-aircraft weapons that will make them to close the airspace, that they will see that country as an enemy and open or legitimate for attack and be intervening in the war. But we are so desperate for an intervention. Ukraine this is the survival of the country. So in the name of Ukraine surviving, we are begging that NATO should do something. But on the other hand, even though I see from the side of the Ukrainians, because I see myself as part of Ukraine, that yes, we need this help desperately. But on the other hand, if NATO will come in and do what we are asking NATO to do, that will probably even cause more problem, not just for Ukraine, but for the whole world. So it's a very nasty choice right here. Do we come in to help Ukraine, to try to save Ukraine, and risk the safety of the whole world? So do we try to save Ukraine and then put the whole world at the edge of extinction? Or we leave Ukraine to face Russia by herself? So there's a deep moral question here that the West and NATO is facing, and which doesn't have an easy answer. For me, from Ukraine side point of view, it's not an easy answer, because on the one hand, yes, we in Ukraine want help desperately. But on the other hand, as an individual, I'm thinking a World War III is even worse than whatever danger Ukraine is facing now. So the danger facing Ukraine now could be the same danger facing the whole world. And so the question that is standing before humanity now is, does humanity or the world sacrifice Ukraine for the safety of the whole world, or we defend Ukraine and risk the elimination of the whole world? So that's my biggest concern. And if you are a Christian that is watching this program and you're a believer, I would really encourage you to pray about this. This is the biggest challenge that I think all of us are facing right now. God has to give. We have to pray that God gives wisdom to the leaders of nations, to leaders of Western nations, leaders of Ukraine, Russia, to people who take political and military decisions, that we would not, this would not be the end of our civilization. And let me even tell you something more. After living in Russia and former Soviet Union for the past 36 years, I can tell you this: Russia is dreaming of an opportunity to take on America. So they're just waiting for that opportunity to take on America, because they know they have the weapon, the nuclear weapon, the destructive nuclear weapons. Because with the war that's going on in Ukraine right now, let me tell you, when we're talking about destructive weapons, what we're having in Ukraine right now is destructive weapons are not being applied. These are just conventional weapons. But Russia is dreaming of the West or America provoking it, getting involved in it, so that they will really show the West what they are capable of. Because I am sure Russia has situated or had set their nuclear weapons in strategic places or positions in such a way as to destroy the whole America and Europe, rather than risk them losing the war. So, of course, the best solution where I am right now is to pray that there will be negotiation. If there will be negotiation and everybody will be able to reach some compromise, then this might be a way out. But let us just pray and try to speak to our leaders not to escalate the situation. May God help us and save our civilization. Thank you. Blessings.